Okay, so we need to have a discussion about the Second Amendment. And the reason why is because everybody seems to think that it's such a great idea to get rid of it. I mean, at least all the crazy-ass motherfuckers out there who don't understand why we have the Second Amendment in the first place. And I want to boil it down to just one simple concept. And the concept is, slaves aren't allowed to have weapons. If you're not allowed to have a weapon, you're a slave. That's the simple fact of it. Like, what prevents a slave rebellion? Or no, what stops a slave rebellion? Well, you have to send in a shit ton of troops to go quell a bunch of these assholes who got really pissed off that you came in and overthrew them and then forced them into labor for many, many years. If you allow those people to have weapons, it's a lot harder when you go in to quash them. And how do you prevent a slave rebellion? Well, you take away every form of weapon that they could possibly have. You don't let them have any freedom whatsoever. Degrees of freedom get less and less and less and less and less. This is what U.S. government is trying to do with us right now. They're slowly constricting our degrees of freedom over and over and over again, and they've been doing this for years, and it's getting really tyrannical right now. And the only reason why America is even quasi protected is because we have guns. We're not fucking slaves, you know? Like, I live in a household. I've lived in a household all my life that has guns, or at least a gun. I mean, I've shot guns. I don't currently have a gun, but I've thought about it before. I'm like, at some point it'd be nice if I could afford one. I'd totally get one, you know? Like, just a little handgun for me for self-protection for the house or whatever. Or maybe, like, when we eventually move out to the countryside, a shotgun in case, like, a coyote or something comes up on the yard and I have to defend myself from something a little bit more significant than, like, a human being that I can just kind of shoot in the direction at and scare off, you know? Like, humans, if they're not retarded, understand gun means death. And so I better run. You can fire at least a warning shot with a human. With an animal like a coyote, they don't understand a gun. You just shoot them in the face. I don't have a lot of compassion for wild animals because, given the chance, they would kill me. You know? And mind you, I've seen coyotes before that are perfectly... I wouldn't call them tame, but they see a human and they wander off because they know that there's too much going on. You know, like, when I lived on the river with my parents, we were right off the freeway. There was a ton of houses around us. I mean, there was roads on, like, 3 different sides, and then you had the river there, and that's the reason why the coyotes were there, was because of the river. And those coyotes generally wouldn't mess with the humans in that area. You know, I've seen them on multiple occasions. They kind of look at you and they wander off. And usually there's only, like, one of them, right? And so the worst thing that a coyote will do, though, and this is why you really got to be careful with your dogs, is they'll send one out, right? And it's that one that you don't have to really worry about, because one's not going to take you on. But that one will go off and they'll do something like initiate play with your dog. And they're actually really good at this. They'll get your dog to play, and they'll get your dog distracted and have your dog sort of follow them. And then the other coyotes come out and attack. And it's really bad. But if you see one coyote, generally you don't have to worry too much. You just make sure you go in the opposite direction that it's going, because it's probably going back to its pack. And they run in packs. So, but that's the reason why, like, I think that, like, in the countryside, maybe at some point I would want to get a shotgun. And a shotgun is like a completely different animal from a handgun. And then, like, rifles. My god, rifles are like... I think rifles are my favorite. But the thing with rifles is that, like, yeah, they could be good for self-defense, but, you know, there's something about a spread of you know, shotgun pellets just spraying a group of a pack of coyotes that sounds a little bit more appealing than one bullet that I have to aim at, you know. Like, there's reasons why different weapons are good for different things. So, the whole concept of slavery and weapons and stuff like that, you've had slave rebellions all throughout history. I mean, this goes back to, like, way before Rome, probably, you know, like, you have clear examples in Rome. I mean, we still have movies about slave rebellions that happened in Rome, and the thing is that it's way easier for a government to quell a slave rebellion when you can just kill them and they can't fight back. Second off, if they don't have weapons, they're a lot less empowered to go forth and do something like that. And, you know, it's just astounding to me. Like, in every single way, our U.S. government wants to, like, control us and take our freedom, but the fact that we have guns everywhere in this country is one of the reasons we've never, like, really suffered any, like, land invasions. It's like, oh, you want to go invade America? Okay, let's take account of who has guns, how many U.S. citizens have guns. Let's just check how many, NRA memberships there are. Let's start with that number, which I think is quite significant if I can remember. And so if you got like half the population being armed, that makes an invading foreign army question whether or not it actually wants to go into that country. Because think about it, wartime, it's clear who the enemy is. You got a gun in your house. A single soldier from the opposing army shows up. What the hell are you gonna do? You're gonna fucking take a shot. That's what you're gonna fucking do. Especially if the government has done any good in their propaganda and convinced you that they are an evil son of a bitch who deserves to die. Which, if they're an invading army, yeah, they probably do deserve to die. They're in your country, illegally, trying to overthrow you. Yeah, at that point they deserve to die. That's just the way war works, and, quite frankly, same goes to when America invades some country out there that they shouldn't have invaded, you know what I mean? I mean, as in vice versa, there's a lot of ways the U.S. government has become very tyrannical, and that's why it's so important not to give up your guns, you know, like, I would suggest anybody who tries to take your guns, that's the person you need to fucking shoot, you know what I mean? And that's the exact reason why our founding fathers created the Second Amendment in the first place, was to protect themselves from a tyrannical government. And governments get tyrannical. It's happening over and over and over again. And it's happened, like, which government in the history of the world has not been tyrannical? The least tyrannical government that has ever existed was actually the United States, and the main reason for that was because we were just like, you know what, government, shut up, fuck off, leave us alone. And that worked for us for a while, and then we had to deal with the whole ending slavery thing, and we had to go into national debt, and then from there, the U.S. government has just progressed and grabbing more and more power over and over and over again, because that's what systems of power do. They try to grow themselves. Unfortunately. We need to go back to the government fuck off and leave us alone model. That worked a lot better for us. And, you know, the government doesn't need to disappear, because I do think there's certain things that the government's useful for. But my God, they're spying on us. I just saw something from Sticks, Axe, and Hammer where he was like, yeah, apparently Skype's gonna be monitoring and censoring Skype calls. Like, what the fuck? I can't even say what I want to say on a Skype call? That is, like, astounding to me. What gives Skype, like, the right to go through my private, like, shit? You know, like, I'm never gonna use Skype at this point now. It's like, why the hell would I? Like, Microsoft, what is with all these fucking tech firms? Like, seriously. We're going to start alternative tech. Like, it's gonna happen. Like, it's already in the works. I can almost, like, feel the gears of geeks everywhere who feel oppressed. They're like, I know how to build computers. I can do it better than Microsoft. It's gonna happen at some point. There's gonna be some guy who is a free speech advocate who's going to come along and reinvent the internet and or something akin to that, you know, or maybe just reinvent YouTube to such a significant degree that it's the same sort of viable platform. You know, I know you have, like, other platforms like Vimeo and BitChute and stuff like that. I honestly don't have a lot of experience with those, but from my understanding, they're nowhere near as capable as, like, YouTube. But I do see that day approaching where YouTube is going to become obsolete, especially if they keep going on this bent, and Microsoft is going to become obsolete if they keep going on this bent. And what we're going to do in the United States is develop our own products. And we'll fucking kick Microsoft out of our country if it really boils down to that. Or you know, Microsoft will just be an elite thing, and then the normal fucking people will just be like, why are you guys, like, buying propagandistic, like it feeds you propaganda. It's just a little device that feeds you propaganda. Like, get a fucking, whatever this phone is. It's from an old tech firm. Like, they don't have censorship rules applied. Like, what? It's gonna become that sort of situation, I hope, at least. That, or the world's just gonna devolve into complete chaos and war. This is another reason why you need to have guns, because, look, my last video was about John Bolton, right? And everybody's calling him a war criminal and shit, and Stefan Molyneux really fucking doesn't like him. Talking about, I don't know, the skulls of babies or something like that, which I haven't looked into the guy enough to know what's really going on, but it tells me that we're pretty fucking seriously close to war. Like, if we go to war, do you want the U.S. to be a target? Like, no, you don't fucking want U.S. to be a target. Like, we might get bombs dropped on us, but do you want an invading army in here? And if we do get an invading army, do you really want that invading army to be successful? Because if you give up your guns, that's what's gonna happen. Like, we are so close to war. You might actually need it, and maybe not from the U.S. government, you know? Like, there's a lot of talk about, you know, tyranny of the government and stuff like that. But the thing with that is that if we have an invading army, it's really nice to have guns too. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be one threat, it could be multiple different threats. Guns are great for a lot of things. Wild animals, hunting, protection from, you know, people who would wish to do you harm. Say if some rapists decide to come upon me yelling, Allah Akbar, you deserve to be raped, you kafar. You know, I could shoot him in the face. Was that racist? No, wait. Islam's a religion, not a race, you fucking assholes. Like, who was it? I don't remember who I was watching the other day who was bringing up this point, but, like, the Arab nations are like widely varied in skin tone. So you have some people who are pure blood Arab who are as white in complexion as I am, like red hair, you know, blue eyes, fucking Arab, okay? Muhammad himself was like fucking white. And so this whole concept of tying race to Islam is fucking bullshit. Islam is a conquering force that does not care what race you are. If it can use you, it will. Although Muhammad was a fucking racist, by the way. He was a racist. He hated black people. And he had multiple black slaves. And the black slavery in the United States was actually started by the Berber pirates who were Muslim. Okay, so, go fuck yourself if you think Islam has anything to do with race other than being fucking racist itself. I'm just saying that the ideology of those people tend to allow them more degrees of freedom in terms of what they're allowed to do sexually to their enemies. And right now, Europe's facing a sexual jihad. You know, thousands of little girls being raped on a daily basis. It's a disgusting, terrifying thing happening in those countries right now. You know, Sweden's the fucking rape capital of the world. Like, it is a fucking awful thing happening right now. We don't want that to happen here. If your little girl gets raped and the police won't do anything, wouldn't you like to have a gun to go fucking shoot that man down? Like, goddamn the consequences. If the government ever gets that bad here in the United States, I would like the option of going to prison for killing the man who raped my daughter. You know what I mean? Like, if that's where we get to, that I want to have that fucking option. Because if I go and do that, even if I get crucified, even if I go to prison, somebody down the line won't have to deal with that man raping them. Somebody down the line will think to themselves, well, Muhammad over there just got shot because he raped a little girl of the wrong woman who had a fucking gun. And all these Americans around me are fucking crazy, and half of them probably have guns. I think maybe I'm not gonna rape somebody. To be so extreme and to be violent is not generally acceptable, but when you are talking about a literal rape jihad, I think it becomes acceptable to fucking defend yourself. All the citizens in Europe right now are fucking slaves because they're not allowed to have weapons. You know, like, there's very few countries over there that understand this concept. That if you are forced into the way that you think, you are a slave. If you are forced into the way that you behave, you are a slave. And how does the government force you? Well, they have guns and you fucking don't. They can put you in a cage, but you can't do fucking shit to them. See, in the United States, we're not slaves because we're allowed to have weapons. And if the US government ever steps out of line too fucking far, they mess with the wrong fucking person too goddamn much, it can start a revolution, and the US military would fucking lose. On top of that, most of the US government, military themselves, the US military is patriotic. Like, these are a heavily patriotic group of people in general. They're also a heavily gun-loving people who tend to have guns once they leave the military. Multiple sometimes. I know men who've been in the military and come out and they've got like 6 guns. And it's not because they're violent men. It's because they're like, hey, I just bought a new gun. You want to come shoot it with me, buddy? Like, yeah, let's go out to the woods, drink some... Well, you drink beer after you shoot the guns, if you're smart. But, you know, go spend the day having some fun, shooting some cans, you know, it's not a big deal because no one's around, you're not gonna hurt no one, and it's, you know, it's just an assurance that no one's gonna fuck with you, you know, it's just like, the whole saying, walk softly but carry a big stick. Our big stick is our guns. Yeah. That's our big stick, and it ensures that the U.S. military is never going to fucking overthrow the citizenry. It assures that the U.S. government can't get too fucking tyrannical with us, or they will face serious repercussions. And perhaps it would destroy the country, but I have a feeling that more likely than not, it would just destroy the federal government, because we have really solid, like, community governments, and then you've got state governments that are pretty solid and stuff. The worst thing that would happen would be, you know, some of the federal things that are currently being run, like the BPA Power Administration is a federally run entity, but that could all be transitioned over to the states if it really had to be, you know what I mean? And the states could be more or less tyrannical. That's why I think it is actually good to have a federal government that keeps, like, states in check and stuff like that. You don't want a state overrunning your rights, but you also don't want the federal government overrunning your rights. You know? And so there's only so much the U.S. government can do to us without risking, like, serious consequences to themselves, and it's all because we're allowed to have guns. Because we're not fucking slaves. And that's the whole point of the U.S. fucking Constitution, is that we're not slaves. We're citizens. We deserve to be taken care of by our government in the ways that the government is actually supposed to take care of us, which is not welfare, by the way, and it's not free healthcare. It's mainly defensive, so that they don't allow, like, hordes of fucking Islamists into our country to rape and harm our daughters. Not just daughters, too. I mean, little boys. And for what reason? Because the man had a sexual emergency. These people have such incompatible, even, like, you know, thought processes to us. Like, their thought processes aren't even the same as us. It's like, what's an acceptable reason to rape a small child? I had a sexual emergency. We would throw that motherfucker in jail if they weren't a fucking Islamist. I don't even know what happened to that person. They probably got off scot-free because it was in Europe. But think about if the father of that little boy had a fucking gun and had been motivated to hunt that motherfucker down and shoot him in the fucking face. I bet there would have been a lot less sexual emergencies after that. When you transgress on someone's child, you are heavily transgressing on them in the most intimate way possible. That child is something you have created of your own body. That's something that you have sacrificed for repeatedly. That is something that you have carefully built and created and have a relationship with. And then for some random man to come along and fucking destroy everything that child was, take their innocence, take their childhood, harm them, cause them great and massive suffering. Why wouldn't you want to murder that motherfucker? I have a real problem with pedophiles. There's one group of people that you really need to bring back capital punishment for. It's pedophiles. And I don't think for pedophiles, especially if you have like 100% proof that they've done shit, I think you just line them up in a row, fire squad, sort of. Don't even put a blindfold on them. Just let them see it coming. I'm not a violent person. I believe in the principle of the non-initiation of aggression principle. NAP. Stephen Molyneux talks about it a lot, but the things I'm talking about, these are aggressions far beyond what you would even conceive of, you know? These are aggressions that literally seek to destroy an entire culture. And the reason why we're protected here in the United States to the extent that we are is because we have guns. And all those fucking liberals out on the coast who think that we're batshit crazy for having our guns, you're gonna be grateful when the horde comes raging into our country and we sit there and we shoot those motherfuckers in the face, and you realize that maybe getting raped on a daily basis because your cities aren't safe anymore wasn't so much fun.